You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everyone, the podcast that explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. Quick shout out to Commercial Tire over on State Street, right next to Home Depot. I had a nail in my tire and I took it in. They checked the tire, pulled the nail out, checked to make sure it wasn't leaking. It wasn't. Checked another tire as well, and then didn't charge me anything because they don't charge for plugs, which was amazing. So again, I really appreciate them. I took my car in for a service. It only took about 45 minutes. I got an oil change. They rotated the tires, checked everything else. I was really, really pleased with them. So if you're looking for new tires, be it all season or all weather tires or snow tires or things like that, please check out Commercial Tire right down on State Street near Home Depot. I'm a huge fan at this point. Again, customer service for me is a giant thing, and they nailed it with that. So check them out. My guest today is an individual who is flying to Ukraine for a second time on a medical mission. He is almost 70 years old. He's been a doctor for almost 40 years. He has children, he has grandchildren, he has a wife, he has his whole life in front of him. And he's flying over to Ukraine to go not just to the back lines, but really to the front lines to deliver medical equipment and all kinds of other things. And he recently was granted privileges to actually do operations and surgeries and procedures in Ukraine. So he may end up actually heading a hospital there. This interview was something difficult for me and different for me because the doctor's actually my dad. And hearing the things that he was doing and what he was getting after when he was here visiting really hit home, and I wanted to chat with him about it, and I wanted other people to hear what his experiences as well. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Michael Todd. Thank you for coming today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure.
I really enjoy my visit to Idaho.
Yeah, well, you know, considering you're from Anchorage, it is slight better weather right now.
Slightly better, yeah. We got a couple inches of snow up there already.
Yeah. So your plan as of now is to go for a second time to Ukraine mid-November, correct?
Yeah, I am. I'll be gone for about 3-4 weeks, probably at least.
Okay, and you're taking all kinds of equipment, right? I think you were telling me you're taking 20 bicycle lights because power stations keeps getting knocked out, so you could take these lithium bicycle light fixtures, as well as the mobile ultrasound machines that plug into cell phones.
Yeah, a lot of medical equipment, some field equipment for the guys out in the field. I'm trying to get some used tents together for them.
Gotcha. Oh, I mean, you're in the wrong state for used tents. California really should have made a trip to California if we wanted tents. Tell me about your first trip there. You were there for the first time for about a month, correct?
Right. So we talked to the State Department, and they told us not to go. And they told us if we went, we were on our own, and they weren't going to come help us if we had any trouble. And then we registered with the Ukrainian consulate, and they asked for a lot of information. But, you know, we after a couple months, we didn't hear anything more. And a friend contacted me and said he had looked into going, and he said there's all these little guerrilla volunteer organizations of people who can't get an official entree into Ukraine, so they just get themselves in, and then they just run amok doing what they can to help. And they're doing a wonderful job. They're doing all kinds of great work. So we got a hold of this one organization that said they needed some ambulances, and we said, okay, we will donate some ambulances, but we're delivering them.
Wait, where'd you get the ambulances from? Like Germany or something?
They actually came from Latvia. And we picked them up in Poland. They ran them down from Latvia to Poland. And we said, okay, and we jumped it. We're going to deliver these to Kyiv, so we were in. So that got us into Ukraine.
Okay, so you by trade are a surgeon, general surgeon, hand surgeon. Once you got the ambulances there, were you involved in medical procedures or advising, or?
We thought we were going to help with surgery, and I did some surgery, but you know, it's not a third world country, it's a modern country. And imagine if we had a disaster here and some doctors from Germany showed up and said, oh, we'll operate and we'll take care of people, and they didn't speak English.
Right.
And they had no credentials. They weren't credentialed in the States. I mean, we wouldn't let them do that. So the Ukrainians they have a big need, but they're very careful about who comes in. It took us a while to connect with the hospital we were working in. We had an agreement that I could work on small things like lacerations, that I could assist their surgeons in the operating room, which it did more than anything else. And if there was a disaster, then all of us would do everything we could to save
like
patients.
absolute emergency kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and we didn't hit that point, but we could have, but we didn't hit that point.
Tell me about the ultrasound machines that you're bringing in, because you were really excited when you came for this visit to say, hey, I have this new mobile technology. I'm taking a bunch of them, and they seem incredibly cool. I mean, literally just hooking up. What do you have, a Galaxy? What kind of cell phone do you have?
I have a Samsung Galaxy Note.
Yeah, right. And the fact that you were able to put your hand in a bowl of water and actually see bones and arteries and stuff with something that was just hooked up to your phone was, it was kind of wild. Like, all the ultrasound machines I saw were from when, my wife's pregnant and she's in the hospital, and it's this giant thing. But you're taking these to Ukraine to be used in the field?
These are amazing leaps in technology. They're called point-of-care ultrasounds. They are about as big as a cordless phone for your home, and then they hook up to your cell phone. You see the images on the cell phone. They're not quite as good as a full hospital ultrasound, but you can still get a lot of good information. So you can see if somebody's bleeding in the abdomen. You can see if they have a collapsed lung. You can see bones, a lot of bones real well, see if they're broken. If you have somebody shot in the leg or the arm, you can image the arteries and see if they're bleeding, if they've been nicked. They're really, really helpful machines. The Ukrainians, we're taking 5 of them. The Ukrainians are very happy about that.
That's wild. When you fly in, you're flying into Germany, correct?
We stop in Germany, and then we take a hop over to. Last time we went into Warsaw. This time we go to Krakow.
Okay. Once you get there, who's going to pick you up? Right, like you have to get connected with people, right?
Uh-huh.
So who's grabbing you, and what's the plan once you get in there with all of this equipment? Your bike lights and mobile ultrasounds, all of this.
Well, first of all, when you land, the Poles treat you with a lot of respect. They know you're going to help in Ukraine, and they have a very clear vision that if the Russians can get through Ukraine, Poland's next. So anything we're doing to help the Ukrainian effort, they really appreciate. Then we meet with a local rep of these volunteer groups. We call them handlers. They just smooth everything out. Any problems come up, they talk you through them. They talk other people through them. I really like to rest for about a day, 2 days, and then we just pile in these vehicles and we go. And it's a hassle getting over the border to Ukraine. I couldn't understand why. I mean, they really went through us and our gear very carefully. And you have to remember that there's sanctions, and people could be sneaking in things like computer chips in Ukraine, and the Poles don't want that to happen. So they're very careful about who's going and what you're taking.
It's wild. Every time you talk to me about these things, it's like each of the little pieces just puts a different piece of the story, right? Like, you imagine flying in, you're piling into vans, you're going over borders, all your luggage is being scrutinized, and you're not with a group of people that kind of like sit way back on the sidelines, right? Like you're going up to essentially the no man land kind of front line. And it's not a front line. I think you were telling me yesterday that it's not a front line like World War II, where you have barbed wire and trenches and things like that. It's like this dead zone that you shouldn't go into.
Zero line, they call it zero line.
What's that about? What's that like?
The Ukraine is a beautiful country. It's just rolling farmland. It is so rich. It's wheat fields just one after the other. In fact, the Ukrainian flag represents the blue sky over the golden wheat fields. The blue, that's what the blue and yellow are. And as you get close to the front, it's just kind of no man's land. There are teams from the Ukrainian side, and they just rove this land trying to find the teams trying to infiltrate from the Russian side. and they're pretty tough guys. They're really tough, impressive guys. They're fighting for their country, and they are not fooling around. They take personal responsibility for their country. A lot of them, of course, in their 20s, but a lot of them are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. You see that all around Ukraine. You'll come up to security checkpoints. There's security checkpoints everywhere. And it's the neighborhood dads there with weapons and body armor. They're checking out who comes in their town. They're the last line of defense for their town, and they want to know who's coming in. So they take this very seriously. So we spent a lot of time at the hospital, which is far from the front, but then we started running supplies to some of the front units, and it got a little dicey sometimes. I'm being asked now on this trip, once I get the ultrasound set up at the hospital, if I can help these teams going to the newly liberated villages, providing medical care, and we'll see how that goes.
What does one of the liberated villages look like? Because, obviously Russia's atrocities, right? I mean, this is a terrible thing. But they're also not just trying to kill every last man, woman, and child. They're trying to kind of occupy, in a sense, right? So liberated villages are filled with people that were Ukrainian before, got taken over by Russia, and then got taken back by Ukraine. What does that look like?
Well, a lot of these villages, people are gone.
Okay.
Because when the Russians are coming, a lot of the people split. And with the people who stay, when the Russians leave again, they grab a lot of them.
They take them literally as like slaves.
Yeah, and especially the children. So people, when in a lot of these places, these little hamlets and stuff, it's the old people stay. They say, "Who cares about me? I'm not leaving." And they're really interesting. They're kind of cranky and they're so grateful when the Ukrainians come in. But it's really important to get the kids out of there because the Russians will grab them. And when you go close to the front, you do not see young women. They're gone because everybody's heard what the Russians do to young women. And if you see a young woman near the front, it's a real act of courage that they're helping at the front.
I think especially my generation. I mean, I'm 40, right? And you were in Vietnam a long time ago. But the only thing we really know about war is stuff from like Saving Private Ryan. And, obviously there are many of my friends that did serve in Iraq and, went to Afghanistan and things of that nature. But it was a different type of war than I think what you're describing, which is obviously a land assault, occupation.
Yeah.
Which is, man, it's almost like it's difficult to imagine that human beings still function in this manner.
A lot of the war in Ukraine is Saving Private Ryan. In Vietnam, it was insurgency, counterinsurgency. In Ukraine, it's organized, mechanized military formations, often slugging it out. And the infantry kind of fill the gaps in between, and that's who we've been hanging with. But you run into these convoys of military vehicles, heavy armor, and again, they're not screwing around. They're going to fight. We were near Kryvyi, and passing by us were two captured pieces of Russian artillery that were being taken back, I guess, for repair to be refitted, stuff like that. And the guys I was with said, "Those are Russian." I said, "Oh, from Russia with love, huh?" And they said, "Yeah."
You have a sense of humor about this that I wonder, like, how does that go over when you're literally looking at, massive machinery that's being used for death and destruction? You're like, "Oh, from Russia with love." Ah.
You have to try to keep a sense of humor, because there's no such thing as being brave when artillery starts marching in towards you. You are not brave. Nobody else around you is brave. I mean, that's pretty unequivocal danger, and we're mortal. You get reminded how mortal you are, and we just try to laugh. we try to hard, but we also are hyper alert. We drove in a situation where we got too close to the front, and I don't criticize the guys who are driving. I mean, when we were in Vietnam, we were going supply runs. Sometimes we'd stray over the bad guys. Well, that's what happened in Ukraine. We strayed too close to the bad guys, and suddenly it was a very unfunny situation. It was really time to leave.
What was that like? What was happening?
Well, we were trying to find a forward detachment. They're more or less Rangers. They're really tough dudes. They're led by this guy, Dima, who was he's a professional Ukrainian soldier. I think he's in his late 40s. He had just gotten out of the army for about a year and started a business. And then in February, the Russians came. And he went right back to his army unit and said, let me back in now. I want to be with my guys. They started out with about 30. They're more or less a range unit. They're really highly trained, really skilled. About 30 guys. He said of the original guys, they're down to about 8. They're getting more guys, and they're training them just as fast as they can. And sometimes he feels badly about it. We're actually bringing him an infrared drone.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, they're we got some different donors say that we're trying to get the rest of the money, but they mainly go out at night, and what they do is they find the Russian positions, neutralize the Russians, and then the regular Ukrainian guys come in and occupy the position. But he said their infrared drone got hit by some white phosphorus. And he said they're blind at night, so we're bringing one, and I'm going to ask them to name it Miss Ida, the drone Miss Ida. That was my uncle's B-17 in World War II that crashed and he was killed in. So in honor to him, I'm going to ask them if they'll name the drone Miss Ida.
So they have this forward unit led by this guy.
So we were trying to get to him, and it's this farmland with all these little rutted farm roads, and
what vehicle are you in at this point?
we're in a van. There's 5 of us in a van, and we have all these supplies, and I'm getting kind of concerned because I can read a map, and I said, we're going too far south. We're really getting close to the bad guys, and they're just trying to find the right road to cut over to this infantry unit. And next thing we knew, we came around a corner, and there's this vehicle pulled in the middle of the road. And the warning is very clear. Do not go past this point, and we're not going to stick around and explain why not. But do not go any further down this road. And we sat there, and I knew the Russians were down the road looking at us. It's a plum to get a van like that. So I bet if anything, they're trying to decide whether to drill us or not. And what they're thinking about, we're able to because they want the van in one piece. So we're able to get out there pretty fast. But just morons trying to do the best we can, and we went in the wrong place.
I've been thinking about this a lot. You're almost 70. You're a surgeon. You have, your life, your aspirations. You have kids. You have grandchildren. But you really feel compelled to go help. Why is that?
I've had a pretty good life, and one thing I decided is I don't want to have any regrets. I really want my life, when I look back on my life, I did what I was supposed to do. And this is 1939 all over again. My whole adult life, people said, gee, if we had stopped Hitler early on, we could have avoided World War II. This is 1939 all over again. And it's like Hitler going to Poland, the Russians have gone into Ukraine. And we can stop them now, or who knows what will happen after this. So I want to be part of the effort to stop them now. And maybe it'll keep you and my kids, other kids, and my grandkids, it'll keep you all from having to go over if he can be stopped right now. And the Ukrainians want to stop him. And in fact, they'll tell you, you don't have to send soldiers. Just give us weapons. We'll take care of it. That's what I think I'm doing.
The Ukrainian sentiment that you've related, which is there is no compromise. There is absolutely no middle ground that we're going to achieve. You've taken our children, our villages. There's no going back from this.
People, you hear that people say now and then, let's negotiate with the Russians. It's like, the Russians are occupying their land and taking their people. And it's like a burglar coming in your house. And people say, why don't you negotiate with the burglar? Why don't you let him keep a couple bedrooms and one or two of your kids? That's what it's like. So the subject of negotiating with the Russians comes up with the Ukrainians, and their eyes just dilate, and they say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to free our land and free our people.
And these aren't politicians saying this necessarily.
No.
These are people that are on the front. These are people that are putting their life on the line and standing by their words.
The whole country's at war. Everybody's involved with the war effort. It's amazing. The average citizen is taking responsibility to fight the Russians, whether it's making the soldiers soup or getting them socks, or just running medical supplies to them, which was a big part of what we did. The last run we went on, we were taking these big bundles out to the van. And I said, what are these? And they said they're camouflage net. They said the women get together and they make camouflage net. He said my wife and my daughter were in a party where they made this camouflage net. And I thought, dang it. These women are supposed to be making baby blankets. They're not supposed to be having make camouflage net. They're just really amazing people.
What can the average person here do?
Well, the United States is doing quite a bit, and President Biden's doing quite a bit. He really is. So the first thing I say is support the president, support his administration. I don't care who you voted for.
That is a very profound thing coming from you.
Yeah.
And this is not a criticism. This is a compliment. You are not, and again, I don't mean to out your political stance, but you are not a Biden supporter at the election. You do not think things were done above board. So for you to say support Biden and the administration I would not expect that from you.
Well, I believe it. Whoever's president is my president, and we should support him and try to help him get done what they want to get done. But Biden really is doing a lot for the Ukrainians. He's really, really, I'm astonished with how much support he's directed their way. And I'd like to see him keep it up. So, I ask that people support the president. Let's get a little unity here. Let's stop some of the quarreling amongst ourselves. I mean, basically, we're at war right now. We're at war right now. We're just not sending American soldiers. We're sending all our equipment over. We're everything but sending our soldiers. We're in war. So this is not the time for us to be picking each other, making comments to each other, or to be tearing down the president. And I think the president's doing a good job helping the Ukrainians. So continue to help the president. You can support. There are different organizations supporting. You can find one you believe in. I'm in a little bit of an awkward situation because I don't like asking people for money, and I am very uncomfortable accepting money for people. But it's part of my job. That's part of my job. If the Ukrainians can sit there and fight the Russians across the field, I can get involved with fundraising. So,
and to be clear, you personally purchased a lot of the equipment you're taking over.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I want to. Whatever happens, I want to know I did my part. And plus, it's so awkward because some of my friends have given a lot, and they're incredibly generous. So how can I give less than they do? That wouldn't feel very good. But this trip, we're taking some great stuff. We're taking the ultrasound machines. I'm taking ear equipment, blood pressure monitors, OT-SAT monitors, thermometers, which everybody has around. I'm taking a lot of nursing gear, bandages, tape, things like that. We're taking the tents. We're taking some Coleman stoves, not the propane ones, the ones that run on white gas, because you can get those to run off unleaded fuel. Because these winter's coming, these guys are going to be cooking outside. And a lot of times they're cooking over wood fires right now. We have, I called my bike shop and asked if they would donate some rechargeable lights, bike lights, because so much of the country now is being blacked out and they only get power a couple hours a day. So if they have these lights, they can charge them when the power's on. And then they'll have light. I think the people at the hospital are really going to like that. I also got some of those old white gas hand warmers. I will see if they like those. I think they're going to like those quite a bit. I talked to some poor guy who he lost so much to frostbite manning his post, and I'd like to see if we can keep that from happening.
Well, listen, I know you have a flight to catch.
Okay. Again, I
don't mean to cut you off. I just don't want you to miss your flight.
And I feel funny about asking people about money. So if somebody wants to donate, if they feel called to donate, that's great. I don't want to feel like this was all about trying to, asking people for money. What I would like to do is I'd like to attach some links at the bottom of the podcast.
Yeah.
And there's some on my Facebook posts, and the people there, I write up their story and I post on Facebook in their public posts. So we'll put some of those down there, and people can read about the struggle the Ukrainians are going through. That's what I'd like to do is tell the Ukrainian story best I can.
Yeah, and I think again, it's difficult for, like you're saying, we're not really openly sending soldiers over there. So our understanding of what's actually going on is very, very limited. We're getting it through filtered news sources. I personally know a Ukrainian guy who got out right before the Russians came in, and I spoke with him a little bit, but he was gone, right? He was gone from well before everything went down, or everything got to this position. So it's very hard to understand what the struggle is, what the sentiment is, and understanding more of what you've said. It's like, look, this is really it. Mm-hmm. I think people do frequently see some filtered posts online on different social media platforms, but to understand genuinely somebody who's been kind of on the front and doing all kinds of things like that.
Some fat old 70-year-old guy. Yeah, this is not what a hero looks like. I'm not a hero. I'm just trying to do what I can to help. And another thing, I'd like everybody to know the Ukrainians are so grateful for what America's doing. I was at this Ford post. We were delivering supplies to this place in Kherson. This town had gone back and forth 3 times, and the Ukrainians said the Russians are not going to get it again. And the battalion commander, who was an attorney, he looked at me and he said, "This war would have been over in the first couple weeks if it wasn't for America helping." And he just wanted me to know and people know how much they appreciate it.
He's an attorney.
Yeah.
That's now battalion commander.
Yeah.
So when you say the average dad is literally picking up arms, you really genuinely mean that?
Oh, they are. You should see them at these checkpoints. You see these grizzled 40, 50-year-old guys with big guts out there. They got their weapons. They're checking everybody's paper. They're making sure all the vehicles are looked over. This is their town, their hamlet, and they're the last barrier to keep anybody from coming in there. And in 14, there were so many bad guys, the little green men that infiltrated in and caused mischief, and Ukraine promised themselves this was not going to happen again. And they're stopping it. The little green men, the Russian special forces, are not making headway.
Well, thank you for what you're doing.
You bet.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking about it.
And I want you to know I feel like I'm representing all of us. Everybody who wishes they were there helping. I'm representing all of us. Slava Ukraine.
Thanks, everybody. Quick shout out to our sponsor, C Squared Social. C Squared Social is the leading expert in social media marketing and creative marketing. They have fantastic platforms. I have been a client of theirs for some time. I cannot recommend them highly enough. C Squared Social for all of your social media and creative marketing needs.
Can